everyone. Cotty and John, you win. You're ready to plate up. Fantastic. John made the dough, but you made gnocchi. Is that little noodlies? I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds yummy. Hello, Rita. Hello, Karen and Joan. Oh, Karen and Joan. Sorry, Karen. Karen and Joan ready for a super Shiraz. Excellent. Craig has got to settle down with the work. It's dreadful. I think Peter and Karen are there too. Oh, yes. Hello, Peter and Karen. Yeah. Well, it's vintage has started. How exciting. So everyone's head's spinning a little bit now. Excuse me, a little sip of water. Had a bit of rain in the last 24 hours, which is, we needed rain, but not right now. We'd like it to stay away just for a few weeks while we finish ripening the grapes and getting them off the vine. So that would be good now. Hello, Sonia. How are you going? Port Fairy, lovely. Hello, Kay. How you doing? I don't know who else. I know there's quite a few people who are not able to join us tonight. Dan and Paige are not here. It's a shame. A couple of other people who emailed me, can't remember. Anyway, those of you who are here, fantastic. We've got Shiraz. It's a cold afternoon. I was going to put my hoodie on, but I know I get hot when I'm like talking to you, so I decided not to. Hello, Jack and Zach. Lovely to see you. This 22 Shiraz, I'm very excited to share with you. And it's got some secrets that we have to reveal, so that will be fun. First of all, glassware. Now, you'll be very familiar, those of you who come to our cellar door. Hello, Anne. How are you going? Beef stew with garlic bread at the ready. Fantastic. Yes, the beagle would be very interested. Hello, Shell. Hello, Andrew. Venison and red wine pies. Yum. Delicious and blanched broccoli. Sounds great. Okay, so glassware. This is the magnum glass that we use in cellar door. So that is a perfectly good wine glass to use with any wine really, but particularly good with fuller bodied red wines. So good for Shiraz. This is a Riedel Vinum Cabernet glass. Now, Dad and I were trying to work out whether it was a Cabernet or Shiraz glass. We seemed to remember that we bought more likely to have bought Cabernet glasses than Shiraz glasses in the first instance when we had the restaurant. And also I looked it up and the Shiraz glass, hang on, so just to show you the difference in size. So they're quite similar. The bowl is almost exactly the same. This has just got a slightly shorter stalk on it. What you don't want is a balloon Pinot glass because that's going to spoil that kind of gets in the way of the aromatics of a Shiraz, I find. But the Shiraz glass, the Riedel Vinum Shiraz glass, is slightly taller and slightly narrower at the top. So if you just go for a normal Riedel Sangiovese glass or an ISO tasting glass, that's the right shape for this kind of wine. Okay, that's enough glass talk. What did Karen and Peter do? That was the polenta with the dope. Yum, delicious. Rita is having Wagyu steak with oven chips and rocket salad and some crumbly cheddar. Delicious. All right, let's get this wine open. It is, I didn't even show you the label before I got it open because I was too excited. Moorooduc Estate, McIntyre Vineyard Shiraz 2022 new release. We've been showing this at cellar door for only a couple of weeks now. Brand new, hot off the press, 22 Shiraz. You can see immediately that we've got a different colour to the normal Pinot. There you go, Richard. Poor Richard sitting there with an empty glass, very patiently. So Shiraz. We grow a little bit of Shiraz here on the McIntyre vineyard. We make about 80 to 100 dozen bottles in a good year. It takes about a month to 6 weeks longer than the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay to ripen. So this year will be interesting. If it's gone cold and it stays cold, then that might be a problem. We'd quite like a little bit of warmish sunshine now would be nice. Cheers, everyone. Emily, oh no, you left the bottle in Hawthorne, but have the 19. Okay, good, excellent. Well, that'll be a lovely drink. It'll be quite different from this because as well as being, so this is McIntyre fruit, as always, but in 2022, we weren't so sure about the whole bunches. So we did some of the wine as a whole bunch ferment, and we did some of the wine destemmed because we just weren't sure how it was going to go. There are a few issues that made us think maybe this wasn't the year to do 100% whole bunch. And when the wine was finished, we looked at the 100% whole bunch. Oh, hello, Linda. Poor Linda's not very well. Lovely to see you, though, Linda. She wasn't at work today, which means that she's very not well because Linda never doesn't come to work. Feel better soon, Linda. Some whole bunch, some destemmed. We looked at the two wines. They both looked very good, but they both were a bit. The whole bunch wine was not on its own as good as we wanted it to be. So we did some blending trials, and we came to the conclusion that this was a much better wine with some of both wines blended together. Now, I just looked it up and I just said it out loud, so hopefully I get it around the right way. I'm sure Richard will correct me if I get it wrong, but this has got 55% whole bunch, 55% destemmed, and 45% whole bunch. So it should be quite different from Shirazes that we've made in the recent years. And I think you can see on the nose. The nose is huge. Cody says a little bit minty. Yes, a little bit minty. That's one of the reasons that we thought that maybe not 100% whole bunch would be a good idea. That mint will blow off a little bit. And if you think about Moorooduc Shiraz and McLaren Shiraz, they often have, when they're ripe, they have that little bit of a minty eucalyptus note to them. That's their little Aussie accent, and I think this wine's definitely got it. It's got, I think, a lovely lifted red and black plum fruit aromatic to it. There's some really nice. So I'm going to get very technical. I think there's a pepper character. It's not great. It's not ground black pepper. It's black peppercorns. They have a particular perfume to me. Excuse me. Made me sneeze like I was sniffing pepper as well. It's got this really kind of lifted floral black peppercorn aromatic to it as well, which I think is really lovely. It's got a little bit of violet floral notes, a little bit of dark rose petal, which we see in our Pinots and I see in our better Shirazes. And I just think it's got a really alluring nose at such a young age. Often these Shirazes, when they're very young, will be a little bit awkward and a little bit angular. You can see that whole bunch element. You can see that slightly leafy herbal note coming through, but it's a little bit softer than we've seen in previous years, and the fruit's kind of coming up a little bit more, and the florals are coming up a little bit more on the nose. Let's have a taste. I get a real kind of cocoa dark chocolate flavour right at the front of the palate, and then again, almost slightly sour plum fruit, a little bit of chopped thyme and rosemary and oregano and wild mint on the palate as well. I get less of the florals on the palate. It's much more savoury on the palate. The tannins are quite firm and quite present. On its own, the wine looks quite young and snappy at the moment on the palate. I think with some air and with some food, that's going to do really lovely things. It's kind of crying out for me, the shape of the tannins and the intensity of the tannins, and that it's also got a real sort of tangy red plum acidity to it as well. It's really crying out for some slow braised meat or some high quality protein. So that's why we went for the daube if you felt like making it, or if you had the time, a steak if you just wanted to go for something a bit more, or the meat pies that Shell and Andrew have gone for. I think venison pies will be lovely with this. I think venison generally would be lovely with this wine as well. So we should all be getting into the wild pie, wild meat people for this wine for sure. Everyone's gone very quiet. I hope it's because I'm saying clever and interesting things and not because you've all turned off and talking to other people now. How are you finding the wine? Are you enjoying it? Are you finding it a little bit young and a bit chunky? How's it going? I'm going to have a little bit of meat while I and I've got just a little bit of meat here. We had this daube for lunch today, so I saved a little bit for tasting with the wine. Are you all still there? It's very strange not to be getting any comments. My computer is telling me that everyone's there, but I'm not hearing anything from you guys. Alison, quiet, late, just pouring. Excellent. Thank you, Linda. Good. Okay. Yes, good. Thank you. Okay. I do know how much you loathe Shiraz. Haha. It's fabulous with your steak and mushroom sauce. Excellent. Busy eating. Good. The daube is a delicious recipe. I agree. Good. I'm so glad. Phew. I was like, all of a sudden I thought maybe I'd lost you all. I was just talking to myself again, which is a fairly normal thing to happen. But usually on a Thursday night it doesn't happen. Okay, cool. That daube recipe, for those of you who didn't make the daube, and yes, Andrew and Shell, you can make it with wild meat. So you could make it with venison for sure, or probably even kangaroo would be really yum. Shell and Andrew's pies have just come out of the oven. Don't burn your mouths. That's always a danger with meat pies straight out of the oven. But yes, you could use wild meat in the daube recipe. There's something really beautiful about that recipe that Jill she makes it regularly for us over vintage. It's got some olives in the sauce, black olives and tomato and bacon, but it's basically about the red wine and the beef just cooking really slowly after having marinated for a long time. We all talk to ourselves sometimes. Yes, thank you, Nareem. Whose recipe is the one you sent? John comboed that recipe with Elizabeth David. Elizabeth David's recipe is pretty good too. Do you know what? I didn't even look at the front of the book. I know which book it is. It's a French country cookbook, I think, that Jill's had forever. I'll have to... It wasn't Elizabeth David. No, it's in on the... would you mind going and having a look, Dad? I think it's in the kitchen on the table, open at the page for the daube, because I should let people know what the book is. And Too Busy Eating, great match with the beef and mushroom stew, not as tannic as some new Shiraz wines, much more... Yeah, that's one of the things about cool climate Shiraz from the Mornington Peninsula. And also... not wanting to cast nasturtiums at anybody else, but I will say just this, that this wine, all the tannins in this wine come from the skins and the stalks of the grapes. So we don't add any powdered tannin, and that is a thing that happens with some Shirazes in Australia, just to boost the structure and to boost the colour of the wine, because tannin is Shiraz is a grape variety, is sort of a medium tannin variety, whereas in Australia there's some pretty massive wines made out of Shiraz by using that added tannin method to sort of pull out more structure and colour in the wine and more savouriness in the wine when you've got really ripe warm climate grapes. But we don't do that at Moorooduc. We also don't give the wine very much new oak at all. It's very small quantities of new oak. So again, we're not pulling out a lot of tannin from oak barrels. It's all the grape tannins here. So that's why they're nice and soft and not too aggressive. Jack's getting big tannins and structured, getting green peppercorns and some plum. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to put a bit more meat and some olive in my mouth because I think black olives Also fantastic with these flavours. Richard's gone outside to find Jill because she's not joining us tonight because she doesn't like Shiraz. As you know, she's outside gardening with the cat who finally came back. She was missing for 3 days, so Mum and Dad are very pleased that the cat came back. And Jill's outside gardening with her. So Dad's just gone to ask Jill where the cookbook is that the recipe came from. Bless him. The wine tastes spectacular with the pie, at least on the parts of my tongue that aren't burnt. Exactly, Shell. That's awesome. Okay. So Rita, Rita's asking all the questions tonight. How will this wine age? I'm not really sure. I think it will age well in the medium term. Because we haven't, sorry, I've got meat and olive in my teeth now. Because we haven't done a blend of whole bunch and not whole bunch for the Shiraz before, we are not sure how long this wine will age for. Our Shirazes, I mean, we tasted the 2015 together, I think, last year, and there was a 2018 Shiraz that we tasted in the last year or so. The Shirazes age quite well. I don't think they age quite as long or as well as the Chardonnays and the Pinots from here, personally. But I like a bit of freshness in my Shiraz. I like a bit of that fruit forwardness. I don't like it all to get old and leathery and dried out, which sometimes happens with old Shiraz. So I prefer a Shiraz that's got a little bit of youth still. This wine, though, will age very nicely for at least 10 years, I'd say. So you'll lose some of that brightness, but you'll gain some softness and some velvetiness. Polly, what are you looking at? Polly's looking at something out in the courtyard. Who knows what it is? Maybe Jill's coming in that way. Okay, another question from Rita about Shiraz and Syrah. I'll come back to that in a minute because Emily's asked a question that I can answer really easily. She wants to know, not a stupid question at all, Emily, but what is powdered tannin made from? It's usually made from dried grape skins and or vine cuttings that they burn and then they turn them into powder. So it's kind of baked, dried, and then often cremated stalks and skins of grapes and pips of grapes. So it's made from grape product, but because it's cooked and dehydrated, you get a really different shape and texture to the tannins that you add back into wine. So it doesn't feel, those tannins don't feel the same. They feel really, really sort of powdery powdery, and I can't describe. Here's Jill. I knew that Polly said that there was someone coming in that door. Hello. Sorry to disturb your gardening. Your cat gardening. Yes, well, we're very pleased that you're out there gardening the cat. There's just a different texture to them. They feel more dried out, more woody, less grapey. And tannin's one of those things that really got me through a very intense study of the different shapes of tannins from different red grape varieties. Is something that finally got me through my MW tasting exam, because I realised that every different grape variety had a different sort of shaped tannin that you felt differently in your mouth, and you felt it differently at the front, middle, and the back of the palate, or in the corners of your mouth, or whatever. So I'm quite sensitive to added tannin. Thank you, Jill. So Jill's just brought the book that she got the recipe from. Do you need me to keep my finger in there? No? It's called Recipes from a French Herb Garden by Geraldine Holt. There you go. That's what it looks like. And you guys have got the photo of the recipe in there. It's an old one. Jill's had this book for a long time, and she's made this recipe many, many times. And whenever she gives it to us to eat, we're very happy. It's delicious. Everyone's saying it's very delicious too, Jill, the people who made it. It's very simple, she said, and I agree, although I didn't make it. I just pulled it out of the oven at the right time. This book was published in 1989. So there you go. Lovely book. If anyone needs me to send that, Alison remembers that cover. Yeah, it's certainly part of my growing up, seeing that book around, because it's got some lovely recipes in it. Okay. Cotty is saying, is that tartaric acid? No, it's not powdered tannin. Tartaric acid is different. That's acid. So tannin, remember when we talk about tannin, tannin is the thing that gives wine the texture, that gives red wine that grippy texture. If you're ever confused about what tannin feels like, there's two tests you can do. Eat a green banana, and when your tongue and your teeth get all furry, that's unripe banana tannins. We don't think of bananas having tannin, but they do, and it makes your mouth feel all furry. That's the tannins in the banana, and they're not ripe, and that's why your mouth feels furry. Also, a more wine-like tannin, but not the same, it is if you make a very strong cup of tea. So if you just get a Tetley's black tea bag or whatever your brand is, stick some boiling hot water on top of it, leave it to soak until it gets cold. So you're just sucking all the tannin out of the tea, and then you have a sip of that cold black tea. It'll make your mouth feel all furry again as well, and that's tannin. Tannin makes your mouth feel furry when it's in excess. When it's balanced with fruit and alcohol and all of those things, it just gives the wine a structure on your palate and makes everything taste more delicious. And when you have too much added tannin, it can make your mouth dry out more. It tends to give me a headache more than alcohol does, or, people talk about sulfides. I find a wine that's been sort of stacked with added tannin tends to have too much of that drying sort of intensity, and that makes me feel very unpleasant, both soon after I've drunk it and the next morning. Sorry, I'm jumping around because there's a few questions. Jack wants to know, is this a one-off, or will we be continuing the blended approach? It wasn't something we were planning to do. It was in response to the circumstances of the vintage, where we thought that the stalks were not necessarily quite as good as they could have been. We like the wine. We are awaiting feedback from our consumers. We may very well make a wine that's blended across a parcel that's made 100% whole bunch and a parcel that's made 100% destemmed. But it's sort of harder to get the balance if you're doing both and then doing blends, because that can be sort of infinite trials. We're open to whatever makes a better wine, really. And I think this wine, as a young wine, is probably more approachable than some of our 100% whole bunch wines. I don't know if you tasted the wine, Jill.
No.
You had a piece of meat, but you probably should taste the wine and see if you like it more or less than our Shiraz that we usually make.
The meat in the wine.
Jill marinated the meat in this wine. So if you want to be really fancy, you can do that too. Okay, cool.
I'm going back
All right.
to my Cat Protection Society.
Hang on. Cat Protection Society. So where have you gone? Where are you? Hang on. Where is she? There she is.
So he can come back in and enjoy it.
Okay.
And I'll go back and
Okay.
look after him.
Okay. The invalid. She did hurt her leg, the cat, by the way, but she's okay. And she won't come in because Mum and Dad have had her in. She was away for 3 days, and they've had her in for about 3 days, and now they've let her out for the first time. It's all very exciting. Okay. Rita, I will speak to you about Shiraz and Syrah. Hold on to that thought. Peter McIntyre, hi, is your recommendation of 10 years cellaring from the date of vintage or release? I think 10 years from now, Pete, it will still be okay. So I always, if I tell you how much longer I think you can keep it, I'm talking about from now, not from when it was first made. Peter and Karen, I've officially gone mad. A slight almond nougatiness on the nose. Yeah, there's definitely an almondy kind of a character to this wine. I'm getting less of the nougat, a bit, yeah. Oh, thanks, Alison. Yeah. Shell and Andrew, hope that you've had an okay week. I know that you've been very brave and been out and about, seen G-Flip. But yeah, it must be, it's just weird not having beautiful animals around. Speaking of Shell and Andrew, maybe added tannin was what stopped Andrew and Shell being Shiraz drinkers during our 20s. Assumed all Shiraz was that texture back then. I know. So a lot of Australian Shiraz is made with some added tannin because it just kind of beefs it up, makes it a bit chunkier, and that's what people think they want with Shiraz. But it doesn't have to be. And if you have Shiraz from other places in the world where it's called Syrah, so coming back to your question, Rita, so the most obvious answer to your question is that Syrah is the international name for this grape variety, and most people around the world will label it as Syrah if they're labeling it for the variety. In France, they tend to label it for this region or sub-region that's grown in. So you've got Hermitage, Crozes Hermitage, Cornat, Côte Rôtie. They're all Shiraz or Syrah, but they don't put Syrah on the label. They just put the region on the label. Good, Shell. That's good to hear. Lots of love still coming at you. In Australia, though, cool climate Shiraz. Oh, so in Australia, we have called this grape variety Shiraz. It's the Australian name for the grape variety. In more recent times, because South Australian warm to hot climate Shiraz was the big thing for a long time, and Barossa Shiraz went really hard on promoting their wines in Australia and overseas and tried to sell them to America, and Robert Parker, who Anne is talking about, went for crazy big, hyper ripe, hyper alcoholic, heavily oaked, all really jammy, almost porty Shiraz, giving them 99, 98, 99, 100 points and getting everyone all hyped up about it. And you could sell your wine for whatever price you liked if Robert Parker gave you 100 points back in the 90s and the noughties. And then Americans realized they didn't really like those big Shirazes. And in fact, now, if I haven't been to America since we started doing this Drinks with Kate chat, but before the COVID lockdowns, I went to America almost every year for 5 or 6 years, and I would encounter people who would say in New York and in California who'd say, "I don't need to taste your wine because I know what Australian wine tastes like because I've had Barossa Shiraz." And I've had Yellowtail Chardonnay. I was like, yeah, but that's not all we can do. But it's very hard to break those country stereotypes. So back to Syrah Shiraz. In recent times, there's been a bit of a resurgence of cool climate Shiraz, grown in the Yarra Valley, in the Mornington Peninsula, in Tasmania, and these even in the Adelaide Hills, and people trying to differentiate that Shiraz from big 16% hyper oaked, hyper jammy, hyper ripe Barossa and McLaren Vale Shiraz. McLaren Vale Shiraz is a bit more savoury than Barossa Shiraz, and these days those wines are more elegant. The better versions of those wines are much more elegant than they used to be. So, so definitely keep looking, keep trying, particularly from friends of ours that we talk about, because we discovered quite a lot of lovely Shiraz in South Australia last year when we were visiting. But cool climate regions are trying to differentiate their Shiraz from those old-fashioned Australian Shirazes that people think of when people say Shiraz. So they've started differentiating by calling them Syrah. And there are no rules about what's Shiraz and what's Syrah, but theoretically Syrah is supposed to be a bit more elegant, a bit more restrained, lower alcohol, a bit more savoury, a bit more spicy, more black pepper, less Christmas cake spice. I think it's as confusing as Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio for consumers, and I'm not for it. But while at Moorooduc we call our Pinot Gris because that's the international name for the grape variety, because we don't have a tradition in Australia until very recently of making Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio. Shiraz is the great Australian grape variety, and Shiraz is the name that we have given to this grape variety in this country. So I would much prefer to talk to people about Mornington Peninsula Shiraz tasting different from Barossa Valley Shiraz, tasting different from Heathcote Shiraz, tasting different from Adelaide Hills Shiraz, etc., than saying we're trying to make a Syrah style, which doesn't really make any sense to Australian consumers, because Syrah is not a grape variety that anyone in Australia is very familiar with unless they're a complete wine dork like me. If you're drinking a lot of South African wine made from this grape variety, it'll probably be called Syrah. If you're drinking New Zealand wine made from this grape variety, which not many Australians are doing, because pretty much 95% of what Australia drinks from New Zealand is Sauvignon Blanc still. But if you drink this variety made in New Zealand, it'll probably be called Syrah. So you might know what is meant by the word Syrah, but in Australia we call it Shiraz. And I think that the conversation about why this tastes different from Barossa Shiraz, because we're a cool maritime climate, because we make it slightly differently, all of those things is a much more interesting conversation, albeit a longer conversation than saying, oh, we're trying to make a more elegant French style of Syrah. We're not trying to make French style of anything. We're trying to make cool climate Australian wine. I'm very passionate about it, and I will shout about it whenever you ask me. So there you go. That's my hot take on Syrah Shiraz. And as long as I have a say in it, and as long as people don't overwhelm me with a different opinion here at Moorooduc, our wine will be called Shiraz because it's Australian Shiraz, and that's the name of the grape variety in this country. And I'm a proud Australian to be making cool climate maritime Shiraz on the Mornington Peninsula. So here's cheers to that. Okay, now I've ranted. Shell and Andrew, I'm glad you're doing a good job pretending everything's okay. And it will be okay. And we love you. And blames Robert Parker for overcooking Australian Shiraz in terms of alcohol. Yeah, he certainly encouraged really horrible styles of Shiraz. Region labelling does your head in, Alison. Are you talking about French? Yeah, it is a bit confusing. You just got to learn it. Just think Northern Rhone, Shiraz, Southern Rhone, Grenache. That's very simplified, but that's pretty much how it goes. Burgundy, Pinot Noir, Beaujolais, Gamay. So you're just going to learn some stuff. It's not that. It's just a few extra bits to learn. Mark Shields, baseball bat Shiraz. Mark Shields was a legend. He was known as dry spittoon, dry bucket, because he never spat any wine out, and that in the end was his demise, sadly. But when he was doing it well, he was a bloody good wine writer, and he certainly shone the light into some dark corners of the Australian wine industry. Bit of a legend. The Bellarine, some of the Bellarine Shirazes are very nice, Kay, absolutely. The wine's now looking more herby on the palate, Kay's saying. Yes, it is gorgeous. It's got a real kind of crunchy, savoury, but it's also got this little, the herbs are coming through in almost a vermouth kind of a way, I think, which is rather nice. Karen is saying, so your Shiraz, that is all whole bunches the magic stalks, and normally your Robins, no. No, getting a bit confused there, Karen. The magic stalks is whole bunch, but has been treated differently. And we will come back to the magic stalks, but that wine's basically all about sort of carbonic maceration. So we put it in a bag, first of all, with lots of CO2, whole bunches. We let it sit for days and days and days until it starts kind of disintegrating. Then we walk on it and we destem it early. So it is a whole bunch to start with, but we destem it early. I know, Karen, Craig's not there. He's your brain's trust. That's okay, because it's a good question and it is confusing. Normally, McIntyre Shiraz, so I think you meant McIntyre Shiraz, not Robinson Shiraz. That's okay. We don't have Shiraz fruit coming from the Robinson vineyard, so that's easy. But the McIntyre Shiraz is normally 100% whole bunch. But in 2022, we just weren't sure whether that was going to cut it. And so we destemmed about half of it. And we made half of it destemmed and we made half of it whole bunch. And then when we were coming to decisions about bottling it, we had to decide which bits we were going to use and which we weren't going to use. And we did the blends and we came up with that blend. So it's the first time that we've made a Shiraz blended between the two different styles. It may be the last time, or we might do it again. We're really not sure. We're not putting our foot down on either side of the fence at the moment. I really like this wine as a young wine. As I said, I think it's maybe a bit more approachable than some of our whole bunch Shirazes, but it might fall over more in a couple of years. I don't think it will, but I think it'll probably age nicely, as I said before, for about 10 years. But I don't know what flavour. I'm not sure what's gonna happen. So we just have to wait and see. I think Karen, a compare and contrast of the magic stalks with the McIntyre Shiraz would still be interesting because they're made quite differently and they should taste quite different. But I have a feeling that we've been and sold all of the 22 magic stalk Shiraz, but I will have a look. And if we've got some maybe 23 floating around, we could do that with the 23. I know we didn't make a McIntyre Shiraz in 23. We've had a few issues with Shiraz over the last few years with strange vintages. So I think in 23, all the Shiraz went to magic stalks. So anyway, it is what it is. I think it's pretty yummy. What's Cody said? I know it's wrong, but this wine makes me want to eat chocolate. I think this wine would be quite a good wine to match to quite a high cocoa, bitter, low sugar chocolate for sure, because I'm getting a real cocoa-y kind of a note from it. And just finished off with some cannelle and it matched very well. Oh, nice. Kay is saying winemaking is a science with a massive dose of experience, and that's the art, absolutely. And Nareem's seeing more eucalyptus on the nose after 45 minutes in the glass. For me, it's not so much, I see what you're seeing and I'm not disagreeing with you, but for me, it's more of it reminds me of the vermouth that I bought from Madani the other week, which has got a whole lot of Australian herbs in it. And there is a slight mintiness, but it's also it's a sort of a rosella flower, kind of tangy. I don't know how to describe it. There's definitely something quite exotic in there. Nareem, are you finding the eucalyptus character, as you're seeing it, to be excessive, or are you enjoying it? That's the other thing, because a lot of wine critics will be very critical of mint or eucalyptus characters in wine, particularly from the Mornington Peninsula. Sorry, I had to have a little bit more meat. It's gone cold, but so yummy. You're shouting at Richard. I don't think that's very nice. Rita's also saying more herbs, the longer it's in the glass. I agree. Another question from Karen. Does the stalk and stems in a whole bunch are you asking, do they make it a darker colour, or does it affect the colour? The answer to that is we're not really sure. Well, no, we are sure. Add colour. So, Karen, sometimes a whole bunch ferment will have less colour, and sometimes a whole bunch ferment will have more colour, and we're not sure why that happens. But here at Moorooduc, usually a whole bunch ferment gives us a bit more depth of colour. And I think that's because of the tannins coming out of the stalks. But sometimes it'll be paler in colour, like the Garden Vineyard Pinot is sometimes paler in colour than the other wines, and that's, I don't know, anthocyanins, I'll just say randomly. A lot of people will say that a whole bunch ferment will make a wine paler in colour, but I haven't ever had anyone explain why that may be. Anyway, Nareem, it's not worrying me. Was just noting, as you said, it may blow off. Getting lots of spice and herbs too. Oh, good. Excellent. Well, as long as it's not worrying you, then good. I'm glad that it's enjoyable. A bit of pomegranate tart, tart pomegranate in the wine. I was thinking you were eating pomegranate tart, Jack, with the wine, and I thought, gosh, that's challenging. But I agree, there is a little bit of tart pomegranate kind of character to the wine, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how it ages, because I think it'll soften, and those really tart, herby, kind of tangy notes will just kind of relax a little bit, and we'll see a little bit more richness and a bit more roundness. So we will have to come back to this wine in 6 to 12 months, I think, and just see how it's going. But it's quite a departure from the 2021, isn't it? If you remember the 21 and the 20. And I think, who was it? Emily and Kevin, who were drinking the 19. The 19, I think I remember correctly, was quite a dark, dense, savoury whole bunch Shiraz, which will be delicious, but very different from this crunchy little red and black fruited number. So maybe one of these days. I was actually thinking that for Drinks with Kate Live event this year in the winter months. Can't remember now when I said I was going to do it, May or June, or not June, May or July maybe. I thought it would be quite fun to do a Shiraz tasting, and we could do a lineup of the McIntyre Shiraz and then do an international Shiraz tasting as well, and really kind of get our heads around what Shiraz as a grape variety tastes like. We're going to have a big, fat, juicy, oaky Barossa Shiraz as well, a yummy one though. So if you're interested in that, let me know. We'll work on dates for that, because I haven't put a date in the diary yet for that. I think I've had a little bit of feedback about hoodies. There's at least 3 of you who'd like a new hoodie. So Pete says I think he said we needed to get 28 or 30 orders to be able to go ahead with it. So if you're holding back, or if you're on the fence with the hoodies, please let us know. I will send out a little. I'll send out a little email with some ideas. But my other question with the hoodies is, Pete had a couple of plays with other designs. Do you want perhaps a different coloured hoodie with the same design that we had last time, or would you like to see something new and different for 2026? So that's another question. That would be awesome, says Kay. Yep, excellent. Peter and Karen, how do you park the taste in your brain? I'm just lucky to remember nice or not so much. I do it for a living, Peter and Karen. Not, it's practice. And you don't remember everything, but you remember the things that you remember. Definitely practicing writing yourself a little tasting note every time you taste a wine makes it stick in your brain more. I've been doing it now for 20 years, seriously. And so hopefully it's like, I guess, actors remember lines. I remember aromatics and flavours. It's just how my brain works. Updated hoodie design, says Nareem. A lighter weight hoodie, please, from Peter and Karen. We will do our best. I think that Peter's got a preferred provider of hoodies. I thought that Rita and Enrico would be both having a hoodie. I know that Leonie wants a hoodie as well. I think we might need some. We might need a new design, Peter. I know Pete's watching this from home, I think. So we'll do some work on that. But it'd be nice to get the orders. We'll get the design out and your orders in time for us to have hoodies for winter would be good. So we'll crack on with that. Cotty found some hidden Monsieur Touffe rum and raisin chocolate. Oh, yeah, that'd be delicious. Pete says we can probably do a lightweight and a heavyweight option. Excellent. Thank you, Peter. If people are eating chocolate, I think it probably means that it's time to finish up to say love you all. We are doing Devil Bet tour hoodies. Karen, that is another thing. We need a tour something when we go on tour. So I would take that all on board. If you feel very strongly about it, send me an email too, because you know what my brain's like. I have enough trouble remembering what I've said 5 seconds before in the conversation, let alone what you guys have written in the chat. So send me a little email if you feel like it. Shell and Andrew like the cuddlier the better for hoodies for them. Excellent, very good. Go the Blues. Yes, Rita. People are having hidden rum and raisin too. Zach and Jack like the Brandon style. Need to invest in consistency to get long-term recognition and salience. Oh my goodness. Thanks everyone. Good. Okay, great. We'll see what we can do with everything. I'm glad you're enjoying the Shiraz. Jill's never going to get on board, Kay, but it's okay because we don't need her to love every single one that we make. Next week we are doing the new Devil Bean Creek Pinot Noir. I thought we might match it to something a bit spicy, so watch this space. And yeah, until then, take care. Love you all. Enjoy. Shiraz from cool maritime Mornington Peninsula. Yes. Hurrah. Cheers, everyone.